Hey everyone. Last night AEW held All Out, their pay-per-view, and I'm just adjusting the camera here for a second. Hold on. There we go. But like I said, AEW held the All Out pay-per-view last night from Chicago. Unfortunately, I could not see it because I was out celebrating my sister's 44th birthday. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is because there were two matches on the card overall, the buy-in and the actual pay-per-view, which had the same narrative to it, had the same goal in mind, and that was to set up for the inaugural AEW Women's World Championship match on the first ever / inaugural AEW on TNT Wednesday Night Dynamite show. And they did that. They did that by having Nyla Rose, I'm just adjusting the thing there still, hold on. But they had Nyla Rose, the first transgender women's wrestler, win the Casino Battle Royal. And then later on that night, they had a Joshi wrestler from, I think, the JAPW, or whatever it's called, Joshi Pro Wrestling Association or something, JPWA or whatever, win her match against her fellow Joshi wrestler as well from that same promotion. So the reason I bring this up is because now both Riho and Nyla Rose will compete against each other in basically a David versus Goliath match at the inaugural AEW on TNT show to crown the first ever AEW Women's World Champion. Now, the reason I bring this up is even though this championship looks really nice, and believe me, it does. It looks like a championship you would put on a legit women's boxer. It reminds me of a situation about 23 years ago. You see, 23 years ago, in case you guys don't know, basically, and hold on for a sec while I check something out here for a sec. Okay, just trying to adjust something there. But like I said, about 23 years ago, WCW tried to crown their first inaugural Women's World Champion as well, and they did. However, long story short, it wasn't the person that I guess was promised to be the first women's champion. Instead, it was somebody from another promotion. So, again, long story short, the person that, depending on the stories you believe, that was supposed to be, or was originally believed to be the first woman to hold the WCW Women's Championship was Medusa, aka Alundra Blaze from WWF, or WWE now. Yeah, Alundra Blaze was supposed to be the first woman to wear the WCW Women's Championship. That's what a lot of people, myself, other fans, and I'm pretty sure herself behind the scenes, was led to believe was going to happen. Instead, someone by the name of Akira, can't think of her name, Akira Hotomo, I think that's what it was. She was the one that ended up winning the women's championship instead. Basically what happened is, again, long story short, Medusa, aka Alundra Blaze, made her re-debut in WCW because she had worked there prior as a valet and manager before going to WWF, and an occasional wrestler. Made her return on, I think it was December 9th version of Nitro, and infamously, you can look this up online, took the women's / ladies championship of WWE at that time, or WWF at that time, held it up and dumped it in the trash. This incident got the attention of WWF to the point that up until I think 2018 or 17, she was blackballed and banned from WWE because of what she did, And the reason I say she was blackballed up until then is because around 2017-18, the blackball ban was lifted, things were worked out, reconciled, and she was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, anyway, again, the reason I bring this up is because one of the reasons Alundra made the jump was she was promised she would be the first champion of WCW's women's division. That didn't happen, and instead Akira Hokuto, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, was the one that won the championship initially. Now, everybody thought, okay, and I'm not sure if Medusa was the same way, but everybody thought, okay, she lost the belt to this girl, she's going to win it back. She's going to win it. That's how she's going to become champion. She's going to win it from her, right? Wrong. She had many occasions to try to win it from her, and her last match was in 1997. Her last chance was 1997, I should say, where if she didn't win, she would have to hang it up. Well, her retirement only lasted a couple of years, because I think they wanted her to be a trainer for the other women and even the men at the training facility, which was the WCW Power Plant at the time. As well as I think she needed to take some time off due to some nagging injuries she needed to heal up from, as well as I think she was developing other interests elsewhere, one of them I think being with monster trucks. So, I'm just checking something up. So anyway, she had multiple chances to become champion. It never happened. Now, I'm assuming, again, depending on the stories you believe, that even though she was obviously lied to, she still worked for WCW, but she worked under the impression, I believe, not to trust anybody behind the scenes and not trust anybody not to trust anybody behind the scenes in the official capacity, but not to trust a word that comes out of the mouth. Because I believe the fact that they broke the promise, at least Eric Bischoff and a few others that was responsible for the women's division, at least getting a shot, had broke the promise to her of her winning the championship and being the face of the division. The reason for this was, I think at the time they had a deal with All Japan Pro Wrestling's women's promotion. AJPW had two promotions, one for the men, one for the women. So WCW had a partnership with them along with other promotions like New Japan and AAA and all them. So they had, like I said, they had some kind of partnership with them. And this was a partnership that was teased even a month before Medusa came in. I think they knew Medusa was showing up. That's why they made the partnership happen. That's why they made this kind of special attraction match at the first World War III pay-per-view. To kind of give you an idea of what was in store down the line. So I think around World War III is when I think Bischoff and WCW officials knew Medusa was coming in, or they wanted to bring Medusa back in, and the only way they could do it is at least give her something in return, and maybe what she wanted was a women's division. So I'm thinking, that's what happened. Now you might say, well, didn't World War III happen before Survivor Series that year? I think it did, but I think Medusa was already informed that the women's division was going to be cut and that she might be let go because of that. I'm not really sure. So anyway, though, to get to the point here, like I said, Medusa came in. She worked a few angles, comedy angles, some semi-serious angles, stuff like that, until finally they announced they were going to do the tournament to crown the champion. And again, it did not turn out the way I think she was hoping, or the rest of us was hoping. And in the end, she did not win the championship back. I mean, you think by putting her career on the line at the Great American Bash in 1997, she would get the shot. That would be the night she would win. That did not happen. And the reason it did not happen was because of this partnership, because ironically, afterwards, Akira Hokuto would be gone from WCW, but she was still the WCW Women's Champion. But you never saw the Women's Championship ever again. And it was also during this time that they tried to create a Women's Cruiserweight Championship, And some of those matches were primarily were primarily competed on Saturday night, as well as worldwide. And I think the finals were the only time they were on Nitro, and that was about it. So, why do I bring this up in relation to the AEW Women's Championship? Because I'm afraid, and I know I'm not the only one that might fear this, but I'm afraid AEW might make the same mistake. Now, nothing against Riho. Riho obviously is being positioned, as a lot of people put it, as the female equivalent to Rey Mysterio. So nothing against Riho. I think she's a tremendous athlete. And she would be a worthy champion inaugurally, if you will, if they decide to do that. But what I fear is because despite the fact that they have all these talented women possibly on their main roster, the main women's division roster, that what's going to happen is, because they want to keep this partnership with this Joshi women's promotion in Japan happy, or at least going strong, is if they put the title on Riho, then the only time you're ever going to see that women's championship ever defended or hear it's changed hands would be because of it happened in Japan. And that would be its primary destination for defenses and all that. And again, nothing against that as long as AEW can keep tabs and at least show footage of what happened. But that's my biggest fear, because what happened afterwards is Akira Hokuto, she initially did lose the belt, but she lost it after WCW just basically took the concept of the women's division and threw it out the window. It's like, forget it. No one's going to remember now. And again, that was the last you ever heard of it. You have to look online on the fact that and find out that Akira Hokuto did lose the belt. You have to find out that the initial inaugural women's cruiserweight champion lost the belt, all in Japan. And again, this is where I think a lot of fans like myself worry. The fact that not WCW, but AEW could end up making the same mistake. Hopefully they don't, because they have all these talented women coming in, becoming part of the roster, signing up to be all elite and be part of the company for who knows how long. Some coming in for one-off or several paid appearances and maybe a shot at being champion. They have all these women on the roster, and the last thing you need to do is have your main championship end up being defended only in Japan. Now, I know some people might say, well, Impact Wrestling didn't do that when they put the belt on some women's athletes. Yeah, you could kind of say that's true, but it was mostly because most of the women that held the belt were, and I say this with no offense, not Japanese Joshi wrestlers. And again, I say that with no offense. But the biggest difference, and what I'm trying to say is, the biggest difference between Impact and WCW and AEW is it looks like the main focus, like WCW, that being AEW, is a Joshi wrestler or some Joshi wrestlers. And again, nothing against that. I totally like that. You get a lot of different styles with that. But if you're going to position Nyla Rose as the first transgender woman in the women's division, or in women's wrestling period, and you want to make history with her, then you make history by making her the first women's champion of AEW. That's what you do. Because if you get to Riho, again, nothing against Riho, it's just that my big fear is that because you'll have commitments in Japan, that's mostly where you're going to see the belt get defended. And I'm hoping AEW, I'm hoping Cody, the Bucks, Tony Khan, all of them are realizing this. I hope they do. Now, You might say, well, what about Ring of Honor's Women of Honor Championship? It's been defended in the States. Yeah, but how much? You realize they had to get it on an American athlete, an American women's wrestler. I can't think of her name right now. I think it's Kelly Klein, I think. Kelly Klein, Killer Kelly Klein or something. They had to get it on her at the G1 Supercard show in Madison Square Garden earlier this year. Because the initial champion, the inaugural champion, was never really there that much to defend the belt on a regular basis because she was working for the promotion she was in Japan that she was a part of and she was, signed to. That's where she was working at. And I think that's where sometimes the Women of Honor's Championship was defended. It was mostly in Japan because, like I said, and I think she works for Stardom. I think that's... No, was it Stardom? Yeah, it was Stardom. She would be defending the championship there, so that's why Ring of Honor didn't have the women's championship around that much, because of the fact that their inaugural champion always had to go back and work for Stardom most of the time. So, again, that's why they had to get it off her in the Madison Square Garden show earlier this year. So, again, I know I'm repeating myself here and I do apologize. That's my initial worry. That if they put it on Riho, that you're not going to see that championship defended as much on AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite, as it should be, so that the women's division can at least get focused and we can get a reminder almost, not every week, but on every other week or whenever, of what these women, are fighting for, what title they're fighting for to become, when it comes to being champion. And again, like I said, that's why I'm hoping AEW, I should say, doesn't make the same mistake WCW made by putting the championship on someone that might have other commitments elsewhere in other countries for the promotions that they work for there. I'm hoping they at least, work on not making that same mistake, because I'm not saying that Riho, if she becomes the inaugural champion, wouldn't drop it to someone like a Britt Baker or B. Presley or a Nyla, or even to a Nyla Rose or even a Brandy Rose or an Alley. I'm not saying that wouldn't happen. I'm just saying that, if you put it on her, then your women's division, it might get focused on, I'm not saying that, but it'll be kind of like Brock Lesnar. It'll be like a Brock Lesnar scenario. It's like, Brock was the champion, but the guys that you normally would look at as Universal Championship contenders were fighting, and what were they fighting for? Where was the champion? Why wasn't he there, like, at least every other week or every week, if you will, at least showing that, hey, I'm still here, I'm still in existence, and oh, by the way, this is still the title you fight for. That's what some people were wondering. It's like, okay, where is this guy? Where's the why, where's Raw's champion? Raw feels naked without it. It's like, that's why people, gravitated to SmackDown and gravitate to NXT, because their champions were at least there. Raw's wasn't. And again, that's why I worry about AEW's women's division. Because if Riho becomes champion, and again, nothing against that, think she'd be a great champion, she has commitments in Japan to where most of the time she could be competing there. And you need that championship around the rate, and you need that championship around to represent what the women in your women's division are fighting for, because what's the point of having a women's division if you don't have the championship belt that represents it, or the champion that holds that belt? I'm just saying. So again, I'm hoping I'm hoping AEW doesn't make this mistake, because of the fact that if they make this mistake, hopefully it won't be a long-term mistake. Hopefully they'll be able to fix it. Maybe they'll be able to work something out with Riho, but where she'll be All Elite exclusive. In other words, she'll mostly wrestle for All Elite Wrestling and occasionally go back to Japan and work for that promotion there, or whatever promotion she represents there. So hopefully they'll work something out if they decide to go that route. But again, I like the design of the Women's Championship. Looks like a traditional Women's Boxing Championship. But I'm worried they're going to pull a WCW scenario with the Women's Championship if they put it on Riho. Again, nothing against her. Nothing against her, but you don't want to chance the fact that if she still currently works for a promotion in Japan, where she's a main star there, you might want to reconsider putting the belt on Nyla Rose off the bat, because at least Nyla will be there. But again, this all depends on whether or not they can make a deal with Riho to get her to be mostly All Elite, like a lot of the people that signed with the company will be announced as. So really that's about it, guys. But really that's really about it as far as my thoughts on the situation are. I mean, I'm glad they got a Women's Championship coming, but I just worry about the fact that they could end up repeating some unfortunate history that WCW was known for making when they went the route to crown a WCW Women's Champion. So let me know what you guys all think, though, down below. Comment if you like. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and I will talk to y'all later.